Thank you everyone for joining this online event and on-site in Melbourne about Data Cloud. So we will mostly talk about Data Cloud integration, data mapping, and unification. We have the chance today to be with Josefin, that is working for OSF Digital as a solution architect, Oana, that is working at Blue Wolf, so a practice as well, and myself that is working for Sky Solution. And thank you to Matt to organize this event. So let's get started. We will first talk for 20 minutes approximately about data mapping for Data Cloud, so what we used to know as CDP. After that, Oana will do a tutorial on how to integrate Data Cloud with Marketing Cloud. And finally, Josefin will show us how to integrate Data Cloud with Marketing Cloud personalization or Interaction Studio. And we will end up this session with a Q&A. So if you have any question, please ask them during the Q&A, and we will be happy to answer. So let's get started with the data mapping consideration in Data Cloud. So it's really important to remember the base. I'm not sure if you know Star Wars, but I was a huge fan of Star Wars when I was young. And one thing that is really interesting is that you have a lot of different planets and you have a galaxy. And all these planets are interconnected to each other. And this is like the Star Wars galaxy. And in fact, if we go in Data Cloud, we have something a bit similar called the Customer 360 model. It's basically the galaxy of Data Cloud. It's a range of objects that are all interconnected together. And we call that the entity relationship diagram. So this Customer 360 model have one objective, is to give you an overview of your customer. You can understand your customer on all the different aspects possible, and this is thanks to the Customer 360 model. Now, as you can see on these photos, there is an issue. Like, as you can see, there is some toilet in the kitchen, and it doesn't make sense. Well, it's exactly like the same thing in Data Cloud. In Data Cloud, you need to plan your design really carefully before starting the implementation, because each object are related together and there is a sense and a way to interconnect them together. So when you plug some data into a data model object, you need to make sure that you are plugging the data to the correct object. This is really important. And in all the case, what is also really important is that you connect directly or indirectly your data to an object that is related directly or indirectly to the individual model. Like the individual data model object is maybe the most important object that you can find in the Customer 360 data model. So obviously, like, there is a lot of possibility to connect different data source to Data Cloud, and there is different steps to achieve that. So Salesforce provides some built-in connector that you can directly plug with a few clicks to Data Cloud. So you have that for Interaction Studio, Marketing Cloud, and all the Salesforce products, more or less. But like, the main idea that you need to remember is that at the very first, all of these products are what we call a data stream or a data source object, a DSO. And at the end of the day, when you will be able to leverage this data into Data Cloud, it will be a DMO, in a data model object. But in between, you have to transform it to a DLO. So there is 3 steps. Like, the first step is your DSO, where you have like the object with the source, like the source data within it. We call that DSO. After that, we transform the DSO into a DLO, So it's a data lake object. So the data here is still raw. It's not transformed. We call that a data lake object. And finally, when we plug it 100% to Data Cloud, it's become a DMO, a data model object that is part of the Galaxy Data Cloud, the Customer 360 model. And there is two main ways in general to connect a data source object to the 360 model. There is two main ways. There is like the data bundle. So basically a data bundle will be a really plug and play solution. You just have to plug it and it will be ready to go. And you have like the custom solution. So in the case of Marketing Cloud, you will plug directly not a channel, but more a data extension. And what's the difference between these two ways of connecting data? Well, like when you use a bundle data stream, so like the plug and play solution, like the data source object will be directly mapped to the data model object. So within a few clicks, you will transform the data that you have from Marketing Cloud to some data model object that are already part of the Customer 360 model. So they are already available in your Data Cloud Galaxy. And after that, you also have the custom data stream, which is, for example, a data extension in the case of Marketing Cloud, where you will have to manually map the information to your data model objects, to your DMO. So basically, long story short, Data Cloud offers some plug and play solution, the bundle data streams, and some manual solution if you want more control over it. So it will be, in this case, the custom data streams. So it's really important to visualize in your system, you will have like the data lake object, so the DLO that you can access on the tab, and the data model, the DMO, that you can also access on another tab. But what is really important to consider is that the DLO, your data lake object, are external to Data Cloud. And your DMO object are part of the Customer 360 model and are, in a way, it's one object of the group of objects. And like this data is only integrated to the Customer 360 model once it's connected to the DMO object. Before that, before the mapping, like the data is not connected. And what is really important to notice is that we need to map the primary key of your DLO, your data lake object, to your DMO, your data model object. So when you are able to do that, if you know about Marketing Cloud, we work a lot about with the subscriber key, the primary key. Well, it's exactly the same concept. A primary key is a way to find a unique identifier on an object. And we are using that a lot into Data Cloud as we do with Marketing Cloud. So it's really important to be able, we also work with the individual ID, which is similar to the subscriber key in Marketing Cloud. And every time you plug a data source to a data model object, the unique individual, like the individual ID must be unique. So it's just an example that I could give is like DMO in this case could be cars, like cars. And each data source with a universal, a unique ID could be a brand of car. So for example, for data source A, the ID could be, for example, BMW. And for the data source B, the ID could be Mercedes. And for the data source C, like the ID could be Audi. And by having an individual ID, this will allow you to make the difference between each data source. And this is something that is really required when you work with Data Cloud. After that, there is some relationship between objects that you need to respect when using Data Cloud. So for example, as you can see, you can plug a data lake object to one or more data model objects. There is no issue with that. So you could plug, for example, the Audi um, uh, data lake object to a DMO called car, but also a DMO called, for example, car dealer. And this will be possible. You can also plug different fields. So for example, for the DLO object, you can have a specific field, for example, DLO field A, that will be mapped to specific field from the DMO object. But what you cannot do is having a data lake object, so DLO, that have a field that is mapped to several fields of the same data model object. So for example, if I have a DLO object that is BMW and like the type of, like the field DLO field A is type of car. So for example, sport, I cannot map it to, for example, like the DMO object car, because I can only map it once. I cannot map it at 3 different spaces that are part of this object. So I think that's the most consideration for Data Cloud, like related to the mapping. And now it will be over to you, Oana. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur. That was a great presentation. Can everyone online hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. All right. So for the second part of the presentation, what I thought it would be good to do is a little demo of Data Cloud. So I'm not sure how many of you guys have seen the platform in action. Am I sharing or am I not sharing yet? Okay. Sorry, guys. Window entire screen. There you go. Share. All right. Back to ground rules. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right. So as I was saying, I'm not sure if many people have seen how Data Cloud looks in real life and how it works, but I thought it would be a good idea to put in action some of what Arthur has presented and show you guys how it looks in real life. So for this demo, what I'm going to do is show you how customer data platform or Data Cloud integrates with Marketing Cloud, for example, and how you can ingest data into the Data Cloud. So to connect the two clouds together, the first thing you have to do is go to the setup area. Under the configuration area, you can see there's a bunch of different connectors available. So the one that we're going to focus on today is Marketing Cloud. Now, I have already connected this instance to our Marketing Cloud account because it takes a little while for data to come in. But what I wanted to show you is just how it looks and how it behaves. So it's a really simple step-by-step guide. You just go through the pathway and you select some of the standard bundles. So for example, email, connect, and mobile push. And then you click start and just let the process start going. The second step is selecting the business units that you want to ingest data from. So you'll need the parent business unit in order to get all the email engagement data, but you can also select any additional business units that you want and have available. So once the clouds are connected, then the second step is going back to where it was. Hold on just 1 second. Yeah. All right. So once the two clouds have been connected, then what you need to do is get the data in Data Cloud. So you go to the data streams and you create a new data stream. So as you can see in here, I have already created some data streams. However, I'm going to create a new one for the demo. So with the data streams, you have, again, a variety of options available. After the connection takes place, then you have the Marketing Cloud shown here as connected sources. So you can click on Marketing Cloud tab, click Next. And then here again, it'll show you the options with the starter data bundles. As you can see, I've already connected Email Studio in Mobile Connect. But if, for example, I wish to bring in Mobile Push, I can also select Mobile Push. And these are some of the data streams that automatically get created and mapped to the data model. So I'm going to click Deploy, and that's going to take care of itself in the background. So this is one way of creating a data stream. Now, the second way of creating a data stream is, maybe I need to wait for this to create. So while this takes place, just a show of hands, how many of you have done this configuration or gone through the training or the process? One? All right, two? Great. I'm sure there's more online. So going back to the data streams area, I'm going to show you now how to create a data stream from a data extension. And sometimes it does this where you just have to refresh the page. All right. So going back to the data stream, new data stream, Marketing Cloud, next. Data extensions. All right, so you're in the data extension area. You select the business unit where the data extension lives, and then you select the folder where the data extension is. So in our case, the one I'm looking for is called CDP, and it's right here. And again, just for this demo, I created a data extension that we can ingest into the platform. So once you select the data extension name, you can change the object label or API name to something different, if you like. Then on the next step, what you need to do is select the category that the data is. So for example, whether it's profile, engagement, or other. So profile is anything to do with the customer profile or account details. Engagement, it's anything to do with, with their engagement with communications, or maybe even making a purchase. And other type of data is anything that doesn't fit into the profile or engagement. The next step is selecting a primary key. So in our case, is the customer ID. And then if you need to create formula fields, then you can do so from here. So you have the option to create multiple formula fields, and sometimes you are required to do it just so you can map or create unique identifiers for that data stream and then map it to the DMOs. I'm not going to do that today, but I'm going to show you an example. And then you click Next. And then in the last step, some of these options are already predefined. but it's basically where you can select how the data is coming into the platform. So whether it's a full refresh or only new data that has been created. So with Marketing Cloud is normally every day you get a new set of fresh data. And then on an hourly basis, CDP is looking back into Marketing Cloud to see whether there's been any new updates. But again, I'm not going to deploy this because I have created another one before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one of the data streams I created beforehand. And just take you through the mapping exercise. So after you create your data stream, the next step is doing the mapping. And again, for something that is profile data, then how Arthur mentioned, it's important that you map the primary key to the individual ID in the individual object. Or, for example, in the contact point email object, you've got the party field that is the same, like acts similarly to the individual ID. So this is how we know that from the contact point email, this is the same individual that exists in the individual object. And then you've got a contact point email ID, for example, this is mapped to the contact point email ID. So this, for example, can be created as a formula field and then mapped to the contact point email ID in the data model object. And this is to allow multiple, for example, multiple email addresses for that same individual to come up into the platform. Everything else, again, usually you will find a field that exists within the data model. However, if you find that your field that you want to map doesn't exist, so for example, this outdoor interest field I created manually, then what you do is you have the option here to add a new field and then you create it manually. These are the data model entities, the standard ones. However, you have the option to create and extend the data model with custom objects or custom, any other custom fields you can add to it. Again, I'm going to close this step here. So once you've ingested the data, you did the data mapping, then the next step is to validate your data. And the way you do it is very easily. You can come to this area here, and there's an option here to see the data model as a graph. And here is just a quick view of how, sorry, I'm trying to zoom in, but it doesn't work. Here we go. So this is a quick view of all the objects that exist in the platform and how they're linked together, the different relationships, and so on and so forth. So it's a quick way to check, you've done all the mappings right, and everything looks as expected. Another way to do it is to come to this area in Data Explorer and select an object. So for example, a data lake object or a data model object from here, and select then the data stream. And what it shows you here, it's actually the data within that object. So not just the fields, but also the values. And this is really good because, as I was saying, for anything formula field wise, you can verify in here that you have the expected values. So for example, all the emails in the email field, first names, so on and so forth. Cool. So the data looks right. You've done the mapping. You've got all the data in. Now the next step is identity resolution. So this is where you stitch all the data together and you unify the profile. And two elements are really important here is the rule set and then the rule matches. So when you create a rule set, it's based on the individual object, and you need to add match rules. So match rules is your criteria by which you want to stitch the data together, right? So in this example, we've got fuzzy name and normalized email and exact birth date in order to identify individuals from different data sources. And we also have exact party ID for person identifier with loyalty program ID, and the match on Marketing Cloud subscriber key. If you want to change any of this or just add multiple rules, again, you have the option from 4 standard rules that you can add, or you can create your own custom rule. Now, the second element to the identity resolution is the reconciliation rules. So reconciliation rules is basically what you're establishing as the order, or if you have multiple sources, you need to decide at which point one takes over the other. So whether it's by source priority or whether it is by, let's say, most frequent, or I think the other option is last updated. So you can select here. So for example, in this case, for contact point, we've got 3 sources available for email addresses, right? So which one do we want to say it takes priority? So either by reordering this, so in this case, Marketing Cloud customer 641742 is the priority in this case. Or we can change the priority by changing the order. The other option is most frequent. So which one appears more frequently or is updated more frequently. So for each one of these elements here, so contact point, email, phone, individual, and party identification, you need to specify what is that what is that reconciliation rule. So once you create the identity resolution and you run the rule set, then you get a summary of results. So it tells you how many unified profiles you have, the consolidation rate, matched source profiles, and then a split between known and anonymous profiles. You need to be really careful with this because it's the number that you get, the number of unified profiles is what it counts towards the limit in the data cloud, and probably what you're gonna end up paying for. Salesforce doesn't recommend more than 2 rule sets, but the second one, you should really use it to test your data and make sure that you've done the data streams and the mappings right. Next step, and I'm not sure how am I running with time. Has anyone? Yeah. All right. So next one is calculated insights, and I'm not going to go too much into this because it's quite complex, and I think it probably needs a session by itself. But these are just more complex segments that you can create to then use for segmentation. So these are some of the examples that Salesforce provides with the training. So for example, we've got one called Customer Total Purchases by Store. So the way this is written using SQL. So if you're really good with that, you can create your own queries and create an endless amount of calculated insights. However, what I wanted to show you is the segment. So the segment area is more, I guess, user-friendly. You don't need as much SQL skills. You can create these segments just using the UI. So the segments are also a good way of, again, verifying and validating your data. But if, for example, you want to segment something like customers that are high value, but they're at risk of churn, then you can create a new segment. You can, let me go to edit roles. So as you can see in here, the power of having unified data and mapping all those different data sources and data streams is that you can then access them and create segments. So, for example, you can access, the fields from the unified individual here, but you can also access the calculated insights, and you can also access all of the other indirect objects that have been linked to that individual. So suddenly there's a bunch of tables that are now connected and linked together that you can easily just drag and drop onto the canvas and create your segments. So in this case, we've got spend by customer, which is actually a calculated insight. So based on the lifetime value of the customer. And then we've got the sales order, which has come through AWS data source where we've ingested the data from. So for example, give me the customers that have a lifetime value greater than 700 and also that have purchased within the last 6 months, for example. So this is what I wanted to show you today. Just to summarize, is how to connect to Marketing Cloud, how to ingest the data and create data streams, how to map the fields from the data sources to the data model in Data Cloud, and how to create the segment. And I think with now, I'm going to hand over to Josefin.
Thank you. That was really interesting.
Let me stop sharing.
Good.
Should be okay now. Can you see the share screen option?
Yes, I can. I'm just having a funny message popping up. Switching the screen. So, suppose.
If not, I can continue sharing the screen. And
That's all good.
You've got it. All right.
Okay, perfect. So I will be talking today about the integration between Data Cloud and Marketing Cloud personalization, which is also used to be called Interaction Studio for anyone that gets confused with the name changes. I might say the wrong name, but that's what I'm talking about. Will not be a long presentation on my side. I will just go through the integration and show you some data flow maps, and then I'm happy to answer questions as well in the QA session afterwards. Okay, so why Data Cloud and personalization? Well, so you can push data directly into MCP, which is personalization, from Data Cloud as readily available segmented audiences. So what both Arthur and Oana was going through previously was how to set up Data Cloud, and they also showed how to go through the different steps in ingesting data, etc. But there's also a very important section which comes at the very end of when you're working with Data Cloud, which is segmenting your audiences together. So these segmented audiences can then be utilized in real-time campaigns on either your website or other marketing platforms that you have integrated to personalization, which is a really good use case for a lot of companies out there. So from personalization's point of view, you can push profile and engagement data that you capture within the MCP platform, and then that can be pushed back into Data Cloud through a direct integration between the platforms. And another reason why it's a good integration to have is that MCP and Data Cloud work in a similar architectural structure, where both are using profile merging into unified profiles. If you worked in either of the platforms, you're going to realize that it's basically the same thing with the profile stitching and unification of user records. So that's a really handy feature. It also makes sense to utilize both for the best cross-cloud experience, like Arthur was showing with the toilet in the kitchen. Okay, and then we have a integration data flow map here between the two platforms. So what you can see, you have personalization and Data Cloud integrated in a two-way. So you can push the Data Cloud segmentations and the unified profiles and the activation model and all of that into personalization, where you can activate that as segmented audiences that you will be using in your campaigns. And how it works is that you can have one Data Cloud platform, and that can integrate to several different data sets within personalization. If you worked in personalization before or watched demos and so on, you know that you can separate your audiences, or if you have several websites, for example, into different data sets depending on your architectural structure of your data and your websites. So that's a really handy thing. So it's a good thing to know if you're thinking of either purchasing or if you're going to be working within any of the platforms that Data Cloud does integrate to several data sets if you need to. Okay, so integration to Data Cloud itself, which is the data that is sent from MCP into Data Cloud. It is profile and engagement data. I think it's good to point this out because there used to be confusion about if there's only profile and no engagement data, but yes, it is both profile and engagement data that can be integrated to Data Cloud. This is file-based, and it's an hourly synchronization. And how it works is that MCP collects both user and event data, and it transforms the data into a CSV file that is then sent to Data Cloud through a shared file storage or an SFTP. And then Data Cloud then imports this through the MCP starter bundle. And this starter bundle, you can see at the top right image where it says Interaction Studio, and it's called Marketing Cloud Interaction Studio Bundle. Selecting similar way that Oana was showing in the demo before, but this is for personalization and not Marketing Cloud. And just below where you can see that I have put two screenshots of the data stream integrations. So you have profile data, you need to select the primary key for that. And then you also have for your engagement data, and the two fields that are compulsory is event time field and primary key. And something to keep in mind when you are configuring this is that the event time field is an immutable value. And it's very important to keep this in mind, because if you do realize that you have configured the wrong value for it, you cannot change it afterwards, which means that you would have to delete and redo that entire data stream. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so then the integration to MCP from Data Cloud. So this is basically your activated data into personalization from Data Cloud. And you can activate both profile and segmented data. This is also file-based. On the initial sync, it's either between 12 or 24 hours for the segment publish schedule. And what the Data Cloud activation collects is segment memberships, selected attributes, and calculated insights. So that's some very handy data that you can put together as audiences that you then want to have activated into MCP. And Data Cloud transforms the data into a CSV file, and it sends it to MCP through a shared file storage, which is also called an SFTP. And then the difference between the process that I described on the previous slide is that MCP then imports this data through a Data Cloud ETL feed. If you worked with personalization before, you will be familiar with this. And that will be put into MCP as user attributes and manual segments. And on the screenshot in this slide, you can see this is how you usually work with segments. So there's a segment section within Data Cloud, and then this is how you can drag and drop and create your personalized audiences that you then want to activate into MCP. The next step after that screen is the activation itself. So you would just go into the activation section of Data Cloud, and then you would select MCP as an activation target. And then once you've done that, this is basically where your segment is going to end up. If you work within Interaction Studio or personalization, you will recognize this as that this is where you build your user segments. So what's really good with this is that your Data Cloud segments will end up in the same section. So you can create folder structures, and you will have all of your data, your segments together, which is really handy. Just keep in mind that it may take up to 12 hours for CDP segments to first appear in MCP after initial activation. And what's good with this again is to have use cases such as you want to activate this on your website or mobile push, server side potentially, email, or any other third-party integration. This is really handy. And then this is my last slide. So I just thought to show an overview of how everything is connected. So you have your experience clouds, you have Interaction Studio, you have the Data Cloud itself, and then that connects into Marketing Cloud, integration, and Slack, etc. So yeah, that was all for me. Thank you very much. And I'll hand over to Q&A.
Thank you, Josefin. That was great. Great insight for Marketing Cloud personalization. All right. Next section was
the next
Q&A. So does anyone? Yeah. Does anyone have any?
The next section we've got coming up is Q&A. Just thank you so much. Firstly, can everyone hear me again? Because my patchy. Am I all good? Just put a yes in the.
Yep.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was absolutely fantastic. With what the CDP. I think my biggest takeaway when I've used it, I think we could see then, is just how easy it is to use the platform. When there's bits of codes, because it's never a no-code scenario, it's always it's very prescriptive about where that code. I can see on the chat that we've got a few questions, and I'd like to direct the first question that we've got there to Arthur. But before we do that, and before we take questions from the room, sort of direct. Oh, look, there's two comments. Question to Arthur about he mentioned data via an API. I'm assuming via an API from yourself, Data Cloud. How does that work? Are you able to sort of share some more information about that?
I think it's like exactly like a connector. So I think Oana shared how to use the connector with Marketing Cloud. So you have to imagine that it will be very similar to a connector, but it will be for an API. So you will still have like the mapping process and the ingestion to be done. What is important to know is that you will not have the storage. So you will have to push the data directly to Data Cloud with the built-in API connector, and then map it from a data source to the DMO, so like the data model object.
There's a connector, so the design is not to use, not to expose the Data Cloud to an API as such, but to use the connector to enter. And I'm assuming the API is interacting with that connector, so the connectors are wrapper around that. I guess there's a question that sort of flows out of that. Can you connect to Data Cloud via an API? I guess I'm directing that question to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can connect, you can push data to Data Cloud through an API. However, I'm not sure you can use the API to do something like else, like for example, visualize the data within Data Cloud. I think the main purpose of the API in Data Cloud is to ingest data and nothing else.
Understood. There was a comment on the chat about access to CDP. So as a partner, if you're a partner, then you can access as part of Data Cloud for 4 weeks. And this is safe harbor state aside that Salesforce do have a plan to make demo accounts available partners so they can show the Data Cloud, but that is in their future plans. So it's not quite there yet. It'll just help us to be able to share Data Cloud and also be able to use it a little bit more into the future. Answers that question. Arthur, if you're able to scroll up, there's a question on the chat, went into some detail. And it talked about talked about the unification of data. Could you have a look at that question and around that? And also, you've got any thoughts around that question as well? So the question, now I can read it out, it's quite long. So when using Marketing Cloud and Salesforce, the contact or lead is used to identify a person. It does not matter if it's a contact or the contact part account. The tracking in Marketing Cloud is associated with the contact. When contact points are used in Salesforce CRM, they are associated with individual accounts or with the individual. It is a polymorphic field, so it's not possible to create a formula field to get the contact ID. It can done by code though. So I guess this is building up to the question, it's just giving context. If we take the contact points from Salesforce CRM CDP, here's the question. What should be the mapping with the individual in CDP? If contact ID at point, we would have the account ID to parent field or individual ID. If that is the case, what should we do in order for the contact points to appear under the same contact individual in CDP? My gut feel to that question is unified data, but it's the individual fields are mapped there, and then we've got to make decisions about how we unify the data, and that's done with that rule set. But I'll just, what are your feelings around that? Is that how that would be handled?
I think just by reading the question, it's difficult for me to provide an answer. Like I guess it's also related to the what we call the source of truth. So what do we define as a source of truth will impacts how you set up CDP as a software. I think there is not only one answer to the question asked by Ruben. There is different answer possible, and it's how you want to design your solution. So I would say if you want to answer properly, it will require more time and maybe a better understanding of the context.
Ruben, would you like to break that out to a workshop later on? Is it that question?
Sorry, Matt, did you say something I didn't? We were just talking in the room about the question.
Okay, Ruben. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I was going through the question as well. And I'm not sure what Ruben means by the parent ID field on the contact point. From my understanding of how we've mapped it, just going through the training material, is for every contact point, you have a party field on the contact point, and that always relates back to the individual. So as long as you map it back to that party, you can have different contact points, you can have as many as you like, but as long as that contact point unique ID is mapping to that party field on the contact point, which relates to the individual object, those are always going to link up together. So it doesn't really matter what that value is, what that unique identifier is. It's just the mapping that's important. Does that make sense? I don't know, Ruben, are you still on the line?
What we might do is just yeah, it's okay. And I'm just reading Ruben's comment there. Yeah, the problem is that the point in Salesforce will have an account ID which doesn't replicate to the rest of the data, which map to the contact ID. I'm going to suggest we break that question to a workshop session around that, and sort of ask Ruben before if that's okay. So I think we should just park that question for now and move on with any other questions, and we'll come back to that question in a second. It's a good question. How do the systems integrate, and this concept of individual, and how flow through, and all the edge cases to do with that. Questions that we've got on the chat from the chat group, and then we'll go to the room.
Yeah,
I think there is one. Sorry. Yeah, Josefin, do you want to go?
No, I just saw a few personalization questions, especially about the anonymous data. So I thought I can answer that. So yes, you can absolutely push anonymous data into Data Cloud. It's just not automatically configured. But you have to just go into advanced settings and allow for that. My understanding as well, and correct me, Matt, if I'm wrong, but I think that you're not charged per anonymous user. You only charge once it becomes a known user in Data Cloud. So yeah, just thought to point that out as well.
There is another interesting question from Vladimir. It's related to Datorama and CDP. So I think, yeah, like for the people that I'm working with and that work with Datorama and that are seeing this presentation, they have the same feedback. Like Data Cloud seems to look really like Marketing Cloud Intelligence or Datorama. I think there is a lot in common related to the data model templates that are provided, and also related to the mapping. So like the way of mapping data in Datorama is really similar to Data Cloud. However, I think like the usage are a bit different. Like to make it really basic, like Data Cloud is more like a big connector between all your system, where Datorama will be more to visualize the information and is more related to advertising. I would say, like all the advertising agency or people that want to control how they are spending online. I think Datorama is more adapted to that, and Data Cloud is more a generalistic usage to connect and have a single view of your customer. So like the usage are different. We then have another question about CDP. Maybe I can read it, and Josefin, you can have a look if you can answer it. So it's, can I get a dev org for Salesforce CDP?
Yeah, so I think Matt answered that one before. Yeah, just relating to it's definitely available for partners through Partner Learning Camp. But it's probably, I mean, we have DevOrgs for other things as well. So I would assume that hopefully that's available for non-partners as well. But maybe I'm not the best person to answer that, actually.
And like, sorry.
At this point in time, I'm not aware of dev accounts for CDP. The only two that I'm aware of is the learning partner account and also the future roadmap where they're talking about, and it is in the future, for a demo account for partners.
There is actually a part, this is not a complete demo account, but there on trailheads, for example, there are trails where there are like partly a demo. So you go through the platform and you set up and like have to click on the correct sections. So you get a pretty good understanding how segmentation works, for example, and data streams, etc. So I can recommend to go to Trailhead and have a look at that.
Yeah. And maybe in the future they will release like some proper sandbox as they do with Sales Cloud.
Wishful thinking.
I'm just going to make another comment there. I think it's still early days. Like a lot of this has just been released, and whilst it's a polished product, I think they're still sorting out the roadmap that how we can deliver it to everyone. So questions around that will be answered, but I think it's just going to need time.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
So there is an interesting one from Ruben again. Maybe I can read it.
Go ahead.
Unknown profile, but I think you already answered that, Josefin. No, there is no other question.
All right, maybe we'll go to the room and see if there are any questions in the room. Okay.
So, engagement data that you pull in maps on both the primary key and it needs there's an immutable event there. So it's like, are they consistent in how they pull in and how they transform like an cloud data types?
It's probably a question for Salesforce to answer, but I don't think they've fixed that, no. But you're right, with engagement data, in addition to mapping the primary key, you need to have the event date in there as well.
Okay, so there's an assumption. So there's automatic mapping, which I assume transforms based on the data in CSV. I assume if you manually map a data extension, it does the exact same thing. Yeah.
So if you have any additional engagement data that you want to map, apart from the ones,
inside CSV, which is an issue if you want data from CRM, it's marketing that and it doesn't come by a data stream.
Yeah, it's probably.
Or the MC connector, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Does this sort of tie into that earlier question about integration with the CRM? Because
you can pull the data in directly from CRM, but if you've got a journey that you want to pull the data in for, as in like something happening in CRM, I want to run a journey off it. The event time for that, or if you're pulling in a field that basically marks that event time, it's not the same as if you're pulling in an update time through the connector. The connector transforms from UTC into CSV. And event-based push from CRM does not. So your times are going to be different.
That's tricky.
Good point. Always tricky.
You can't play with it. It's just that's how it
Yeah. But we can always take this question back to Salesforce as well and see if they've figured out any solution.
How would we solve it though? If we would have workshop it now, can we solve it in the platform or not? Could we do a calculated field for it, or?
Oh yeah, maybe you can do it in the formula field, but you'll have to. So is it at the time of ingestion, instead of taking the UTC standard time, you just use a formula field to modify it into the local time or something like that.
It feels like the pain you have with daylight saving.
I mean, often CRM stores everything usually said right.
Different. Yep. All right. Any other questions? Yep. Go. Manshu.
Do you want to come over now? Yeah, sure. But I'll get out of live.
Now that I've got a chair, I'll probably ask 2 questions if I may.
Don't get too excited.
If we can turn on the camera as well, because on our side we just have black screen, and so it would be nice.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
There you go.
Hi. So what would you recommend for handling duplicates in the CRM where 2 or multiple contacts might have been associated with multiple products? In the identity resolution, you might have most last updated as the identifier. What happens to which key gets used? Because when it comes to Marketing Cloud, I'm going to send it to one key this week and another key that another week. Is that a possibility? So yeah, just the duplicated records in CRM. How will the Data Cloud deal with it? And then what is the impact on Marketing Cloud?
Sorry, guys.
That was the question.
All right. Does anyone wants to take this question? Otherwise, I'll have a go.
Is identity resolution the combination of rules, or is it?
Yeah. So with the identity resolution, the idea is that you unify the different records that may be duplicates or they may be coming from other sources into one single profile based on the criteria that you define. And I'm assuming, and again, I don't really have a lot of experience or none. I've just done the training, so I'm trying my best to answer the question based on my understanding, but don't take it as as the correct answer, maybe. But yeah, so with identity resolution, you have a set of rules that you can create to match the records. So whether it is by email address or names or a combination of those, and then you have the reconciliation rules that you also, you can decide whether it's the source or is the frequency that you want to pick up that record and decide that's the record that you want to keep in the system, the unified record.
Yeah, it's all okay until then, but what happens when you push it to Marketing Cloud? You want to send an email. Will you send to the first ID or the second ID? Will it keep on changing if both records get constantly updated? So last updated changes for them?
Yeah, I see what you mean. If that's the case, then maybe don't use the reconciliation rule as the last update. It depends what you're trying to achieve. Do you want to communicate to both records, or do you want to just communicate to one record?
Well, essentially, it's the same email address, but it's just 2 different records for that.
Yeah.
So the message will reach to the same destination. It's just the history in Marketing Cloud will say, I've only sent 4 emails here and 2 emails there rather than 6.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether we should drill into this as a use case for that workshop that we're talking about in the future.
Yeah.
It feels as though the conversations around rule sets, the unification, and how we prioritize things, it feels as though that's where the answer is. But just to look at your problem statement and say, okay, then how do we solve this? And just come up with a couple of use cases and then workshop them through.
Yeah, I think the reality is that you don't really know how exactly it's going to behave until you ingest that data and you play with it and you play with the rule set until you get the result that you're looking for, because there may be different use cases or for different people and organizations. And that's why they always recommend to, create a couple of rule sets, play with them, like check and validate the data and make sure that the end result is, what you're looking for.
I guess if you were to show that screen again, the dashboard you see when you go in Data Cloud, if you do show that dashboard, it actually shows the process. So the dashboard actually maps back to the process that you do. So if we go back to that initial dashboard you get on CDP Data Cloud,
The
you
identity.
can see the titles, those tabs. If we sort of go across, we're looking at
To this one?
data model. We look at data explorer,
All right.
and we look at identity resolutions. The tabs almost map back to the process that we do.
Yeah.
So they're the three things that you're looking at. Like was mentioned, data explorer is the place you go to look to validate things.
Yep.
But let's put it together and make it for our future workshop. That's some really relaxed question about how to do the real sets.
Absolutely.
And another question.
Do you have
This
another one?
one's probably would not require a workshop.
No. Are you sure?
What was I going to ask? Oh, at a blank.
That's okay.
Okay, we'll go to.
Yeah, that's okay. You can ask later.
Ah.
Forgot.
Another blank already.
All right. Anyone else? Yep.
You go. Oh, yeah.
Hi.
My name is Rio. So my question is, how good is the segmentation logic in CDP Data Cloud? Can they replace like decisioning tool?
Which
or
tool?
decisioning tool?
Decisioning tool.
Yeah, like for example, like enterprises, right? Like they need decisioning tool because they have so many data from everywhere, and then they need to basically ingest that, process that, and then basically send that decision to marketing automation, right? So with CDP, what I say CDP, with Data Cloud, can it actually replace it as well, or we still need that tool on top of that? Yeah.
But give me an example of a decisioning tool.
Sorry. Yeah.
Pega will be the most common one, right? Pega is the most common one, of course, right now. But I think there are other decision tools out there, right? But basically, the idea is they are the tool that the responsibility of the tool is to give decision. Let's say, let's contact this person at this time for this offer.
So if you think about stack, and you think about what CDP fits in, or Data Cloud, it actually fits in the same. It's the same as Unica, Pega, all those decisioning tools. So it's in the same line. So if you're thinking about decisioning the data, you're going to put them in that same row, that same column. So it's a decisioning tool.
So we can replace them, basically. Okay.
So you might not replace it because you might have such a big investment already.
Yeah, I mean,
but you might leverage other data inside set the data cloud. Because I couldn't see any organization wanting to drop their Pega across. So forward with that. It's just another decision. In regards to your question about can you rely on it, then that's what it does. It segments the data and it uses filters for that. So I guess if out of the box functionality doesn't work, it's a support ticket for Salesforce.
but is it smart enough though to do it? Because
it's just a tool it's just a connector. So you have clean data, but after it doesn't mean that it will do all the work for you. So if you are using some tool that are using machine learning to do some recommendation, then you still need to use this tool because they are configured for you. What CDP does, it will give you an overview of your customer, and you have some clean data that then you can push to this tool. So like the question is not how if it can be replaced or not, is more like how these tools are integrated together.
I was going to say, from my side, I think it's difficult to say that it can replace, these other tools because one, I don't really know what they're doing. Secondly, it depends of the stack as well. So it's not just where you're getting the data from, but where you're activating it to as well. So if your ecosystem is mainly Salesforce, and then Data Cloud makes sense. If it's something else, then you might have to consider all the other systems that come into play. But in terms of segmentation, I think it has a really good tool in place, because not only you can use the UI and you can use advanced SQL, but all the calculated insights that you can create and the streaming insights, which I think is really valuable if you want to have that real time or near real time data coming into the platform and using that data to create the
segmentation.
Then, yeah, I think it's pretty good. But then again, I don't know what I'm comparing it to.
Yes.
Let's solve it.
That's it. Thank you.
Cool. Anyone else? Yeah, go.
Data's in AWS, yes.
The data is in AWS.
Do you get to select, or is it in a particular data center in a particular country?
Sorry, which data are you referring to?
The data's persisted in CDP, Data Cloud. I'm not sure about which country. I'm not sure if you can nominate a country about an AWS data center for it, but it is persisted in AWS.
Yeah.
As an underlying platform.
Well, I get that. I'm just saying, where is it?
Yeah.
Sure. That's a good question.
You ask all the hard questions, Jared.
I think there's a lovely conversational set coming up around Snowflake as well. So it becomes sort of as a zero data platform for it, which is going to be an interesting conversation, which we can have next too. That seems like another good question for our workshop. Another question.
All right. I think we've exhausted all the questions. We can definitely continue the chat in the room.
I think we missed one in the chat actually. Yeah, I just saw it. I don't think he's online anymore, but it was from Jacob. And he asked, can we use the integration, and this is for Interaction Studio, I think, I would assume, because it reads like this, to send clickstream data to CDP that will be later used by AI modeling stacks, or can we only send campaign data as in sitemap third-party campaign data integration? So I don't know exactly what he means with clickstream and the use case itself, but what I was going to say is that so the starter bundle uses the standard mappings in general, and then if there's anything custom after that, you can add that manually, and that can be like custom events, shopping cart, or like line items, and other custom like user attributes. So I guess it depends on how that data is coming through, but yeah, you can use custom events in that integration as well. You just have to configure it after it's established.
Cool. Thanks, Josefin. All right, I think that concludes our session today. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you to our presenters, Arthur and Josefin.
Thank you so much. Hey, before everyone runs away, we've got an event in April. Our big event in April is going to be about how to deploy to Marketing Cloud. The call outs now for people that would like to present. The way we're doing it is that a very brief pre-recorded video about how you're deploying Marketing Cloud at present. There's no right or wrong answers on this, and what we'll do as a group is just talk about those. So it's going to be an interesting discussion, because part of it's going to be about the practical, but the other part's going to be about the policy, about how we have what the considerations that we need to go through for deploying. So I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. That's coming up next month. The following month, we've got how to build a Salesforce Marketing Cloud app. We're putting the panel together for that. Jason will be keynoting that, so he'll talk through that. Elliot and a few others will be on the panel for that. So we'll go through Marketing Cloud app. We'll also be talking to people there about their motivations for building apps. So that's on the schedule for May, so look out for that. The announcements went out for those 2 events today. Plus, every week we're doing how to get started with Marketing Cloud. So if you'd like to present, please come along and present. Just reach out to the group and say you'd like to present. Every week next month, we've got somebody different presenting. And it's just a really good opportunity to share the knowledge. The people on the call are all pretty new to Marketing Cloud. It's just an opportunity for people to ask questions about what are the transferable skills for getting started. So please come along and join in on those events as well. Share Salesforce Marketing Cloud